I am not a big white guy. This reminds me a lot of
I try not to say anything.
that would be Zamir White guy. But I actually am a big white guy. But anyway,
Welcome to Football Guys Dynasty Show. It's me, Jagger May, and I am joined with our captain, Jeff Bell. And then we've got two very special guests. We have both of the trade addicts with us. We have Rocky and Russ. Gentlemen, it's weird being on the other side where I'm hosting you. I've only been on the other side of it. I know that you both do a lot of work for Fantasy Cares, and it is Scott Fishbowl week. So for you guys to even be here, I think it is incredibly miraculous. Jeff was just flexing his team. I was just telling them my disappointment that I'm in the same draft as Dave, and people are giving trade advice in the company account. That's just a no-no for me. But with that being said, we're going to talk about Dynasty. And because we have trade addicts, we are talking trades. And then the most interesting trade I thought is probably one of the top players, if not the top player in Dynasty, Patrick Mahomes. He's Football Guys QB1. On Keep Trade Cut, he is the QB2. Um, and the trade that just happened is Mahomes for Shaheed, and they traded to get Mahomes and Shaheed. They traded Tua Tagovailoa, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and a 26-second. Before we get to the trade, we'll start with you, Russ. Where are you at on Mahomes? Do you think he's one of these untradeable assets, or do you think he's unattainable? Once we get to these these high caliber players, they almost seem so. But I've seen a lot of Mahomes trades happen.
There's no such thing as a unobtainable or untradeable asset. Everyone should have a price. So, one of the worst things you could do is, hey, what do you want for that guy? Oh, he's not leaving my team. Because all right, well, I would have given you Josh Allen and and Jalen Hurts just for Mahomes, but no, you don't want to, so never mind. Then never mind. But it's when you're trading for these studs, you usually don't leave it feeling good about yourself. Usually it's the right thing for your team at the time, but it's usually you're just like, I have Patrick Mahomes on my team, yeah. And we'll get you talked about the trade, which is fine, it absolutely is, but it's really tough to trade those studs.
Yeah. And that's what I think. You always feel like you had to hamstring your team to get them. Like,
Yep.
we've gotten really good at mimicking what the NFL does. Like, a lot of times what happens when you lock in your stud, you're sacrificing a lot of your depth. We're not quite NBA bad yet with the NFL, but it almost seems as much as they're even talking about having a cap space just for quarterbacks. So Jeff, to you on here, are you one where you feel like you have to have a stud to win, like, or do you feel like if you just have Tua, you're probably fine? Because I'm one where you can always try to get an upgrade, but like with Mahomes, I'm probably not as vigilant to trade for him because it's not worth it.
Yeah, I get that, and I think it's fun that Rocky's on here because I know Rocky and I have had conversations about elite quarterbacks versus kind of placeholder quarterbacks on his show before, and so kind of we're stepping right into that to start off. But I do like the elite asset at quarterback, and I think that one of the biggest mistakes that I see when somebody decides they're going to do a rebuild is just ripping it down to the studs versus keeping those handful of very, very top end pieces and moving off those auxiliary pieces, loading up picks that direction. And you add through one or two drafts, you're adding a Bijan Robinson or you're adding a Caleb Williams to that rebuilding team. And all of a sudden now you've got a core of 6 to 7 very, very high value assets. And especially if you were to hit in some of those later picks, then you're already rebuilt instead of trying to build down to now I've just got a bunch of first round picks and I hope one of them's good.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And just going to the trade, personally, I know I feel like I might be in the minority. I would take the Tua St. Brown in the 26-second any time over here. I feel like Tua's locked in an offense where he has the same upside as Mahomes every week, even though he might not have the long-term insulation. And again, we saw a downtrend last season with him, but I feel like a lot of that is just offensive line, and that could be said of almost any quarterback. And again, we saw a down year with Patrick Mahomes, and what happened? It's because he didn't have a whole lot of help. So with that, and you have such a high upside or player like Amon-Ra St. Brown, I'm just staying put. Almost need context with this trade. Did you just have three studs? Because like, how are you able just to give up Amon Ra for the sake of getting Mahomes? So to you, Rocky, where do you stand on this trade? Which side, Mahomes or the Tua side?
Yeah, it is funny that I'm here for this because this is exactly the kind of thing that I would do. Is if I don't generally pay up for quarterbacks in Dynasty, even in Superflex, and if I happen to luck into one, I often trade down from them. That said, I think this is pretty fair. I'd probably want a tiny bit more on the Tua St. Brown side, but I would probably do something like this or something very similar. Russ and I are both pretty big Tua guys too, so that helps with this particular trade. Uh, I like obviously the offense there is very solid. I really like McDaniel, the coach there. So I think Tua is like you said, is basically fine. He can be a low end QB1 for you. I think for a while, I think he's going to be fine. I know, I guess there's still some question about long term for him, and Amon Ra is just fantastic. That's exactly the kind of thing I try and do. I tried to trade down, still have a QB1, and then get a stud back in return. I might like a better piece in the 26th second, but I think it's close enough.
I think
Yeah,
that's where my mind goes on it too, kind of saying you're not going to give me you're going to get Patrick Mahomes for this. You're not going to give me your first, and you're going to stick it on a second. Is kind of part of it. And then the other thing in my mind, Amon-Ra St. Brown. I mean, production wise, I think the argument's there, but I still, in my mind, I think he's behind that CeeDee Lamb, the Jefferson, the Chase, obviously those players, and maybe that's just wrong on me, and he needs to be included with them. But I feel like if I'm stepping off of Mahomes largely for a player that I like Tua Tagovailoa, but he doesn't have the rushing upside, so you're kind of locked in there on what you're going to get on that production. I kind of want that higher end receiver, or I would say you're not going to give me your first, you're getting Mahomes. What's going on here?
Yeah, I think that's what it is. If I would get a first back instead of a second, I might feel a little bit better. And I know I get it. It's Mahomes, guys, but I still feel like with that he's overvalued. I know there's guys that think I'm crazy for it, but before we go any further, guys, make sure to do all the social media stuff anyone on YouTube has ever told you to do. Hit the like button, subscribe, and more importantly, go to our website because we have a new tool coming up for you, and it is draft season. You guys are going to want to see it. I'm not allowed to roll it out yet until we test it, and I'm already telling you too much, but I just want you to get ahead of your league mates. And then make sure that you look at our audio side because we have some extra episodes with you. We just dropped one with Leo Pasiga just talking about profiling your league mates. So if you want to get into some real sicko stuff, that's audio only. The YouTube stuff, we talk about your players and your trades, but if you really want to get in the trenches, make sure to go to our audio side, drop us a review. It really helps us out. With that being said, we're going to move to the running backs, and particular one that we've talked about plenty enough on the show, but there is enough trades for, and I just want to know your guys' opinion because I love you guys. Rocky, we'll start with you. We got Kyren Williams, Football Guys RB9, Keep Trade Cut RB9, pretty much in lockstep, actually, surprisingly for that. Give me your opinion. Where are you on is Kyren overrated? Meridian, are you like a Blake Corum guy? Where are you at?
It's weird because I am a Blake Corum guy, but I'm also a big Kyren Williams guy. And so I'm kind of torn on what to do with him. He's not someone I'm really looking to acquire, but if I have him, I'm holding him and still feeling confident because in the past we've seen McVay generally likes to try and ride one guy for the most part. I think he can still do that for one more year with Corum, with
Nice
Kyren.
on that
Yeah,
one.
Freudian slip there. But that's the only word. But Corum was like probably my favorite running back of this class. The landing spot was not great because of Kyren, but I still think you're going to get a high end season from Kyren. It may probably not as good as last year. You got to think they're going to work in Quorum a little bit, but I still think it's going to heavily lean Kyren, and I think he's maybe a little underrated at this point because so many people are worried about Quorum.
Yeah, I'm all in on Kyren, especially at RB9 prices. I was always a big Kyren Williams fan, but mostly because he was like pass catcher plus. Like, I wasn't ready for him to be a workhorse, and it seems like maybe his body wasn't either. Missing a couple of games in the middle, but most running backs do miss games at this point. But at RB9, a guy that finished as the points per game RB2, that seems like screaming value, and I'm here for it absolutely. And I mean, if I can spoil what the trade actually is, and I'm going to do it anyway because I've started talking, Kyren Williams for Pat Freiermuth in a 25-second. I hate trading for running backs, especially in July. I would do this so fast on every team, regardless of even if I'm rebuilding, I trade Freiermuth in a second for Williams, because the second the season starts, you're getting at least a first for Kyren Williams. The second he puts up that first 20-something point game, which will be week one, because he's good, that offense is good, and I agree. No running back is going to no, okay. When you say running backs, Christian McCaffrey doesn't count. He's like a section of his own. No running back is getting like 90% of touches, backfield touches anymore. And Kyron's probably not even going to get 75%. But Kyren Williams getting 65% of the Rams' touches in the backfield is more than enough for him to do exactly what he did last year. And, maybe that makes Corum a nice flex option, and especially if Kyren does get hurt again. But at RB9 and at a price of Muth in a second, that's so in on Kyren.
And speaking of what he did last year, I just wanted to mention, I was thinking this as Russ was saying it, is just he did that with Stafford and Kupp, two huge pieces of that offense being banged up. I mean, you could argue that gave him more volume, but also the offense will be much better if those guys can stay more healthy this year. And I agree with Russ too. To me, this trade's a no-brainer. Like, Freiermuth's fine, but even in a tight end premium league, I'll take Kyren for that price all day.
And because like me and Jeff talked about enough, I'll stay brief. I think RB9's way too rich for me. Like this, I think if this is crazy, and like I said, we're still working on our tools and whatnot here. And this was like with this particular format that I looked at. I don't know how my rankings alone aren't bringing this down, because I have him as like a low end RB2 pretty much.
Wow.
And it's not that I don't think he's unusable. I just think that he's closer to corn than anything. But here's my but is that I do think that this trade is a no-brainer, and just using market value alone, you probably could have gotten a lot more.
Yeah.
Like, again, I love Freiermuth in a second, and I hate Kyren Williams. I'm still rejecting this trade every time. Jeff, I'm assuming you agree?
Yeah, and when we had Leo on, he talked about Icarus and flying too close to the sun with the rookies, and I think that this is the perfect example of that, where we've heard Blake Corum surely going to take his job, whatever else you want to hear out there about Kyren Williams, but this is the window where you're buying these veteran running backs. I think I tend to think that you want to sell maybe the veteran running backs when you're kind of a little bit deeper into redraft season, August, throughout the season maybe, and kind of there's a little bit of a window in January. Then from January on until like the very tip of August, that's when you kind of want to buy on these. And that price being Freiermuth in a second, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it like, again, guys, listen to our advice, but use it to get the advantage. This is not getting the advantage. This is you underselling. And like, that's not, again, like, maybe it's your market, because like these are micro markets within a larger scale. But this is probably, if this is the best you can get, you're better off just keeping him, because he is a viable back, even if I think that he's not quite worth where he is. Because like, I'll pay seconds for Najee Harris. If that tells you anything. If I'm willing to pay a second for Najee Harris, I'd probably pay a little bit more for Kyren Williams.
Well, I mean,
But
that's
I think
very
it's
important
worth.
what you just said, because, you always have these people you listen to that you agree with what they say, or you take their word very strongly. Like Jagger's an insanely smart guy. So he says, I don't like Kyren Williams. I'm like, all right, I don't like Kyren Williams either then. So I should sell Kyren Williams. But the truth is, it needs to be at a price. It doesn't mean no matter what. And to put words in Jagger's mouth, because he was starting to say this, and everything being its own market, sometimes that means you just don't make a trade. And,
Yep.
as the host of the Trade Addicts podcast, it's sacrilegious to say that a little bit, but like, you got to wait to the right time. And like I said before, July isn't always the best time to be selling. I mean, the dude's in the league for like 3 years, but you still have to call him a veteran running back because he's old at this point. Maybe you wait until the season, even if you are rebuilding. Again, patience is not something I could normally try and encourage in others because I have none of it myself. But the price will go up on scoring players when you're closer to scoring points, just like Jeff was just saying. That
Yeah.
when you get closer to that redraft season.
I was just going to back that up too. Like, if this is the best you can get in your market, then you wait until the season starts. You hope there's no injury, and if there's no injury, you'll probably have a sell window to get better than this once points are being scored. And I know it's like you made a good point, Russ. Rebuilders are always wanting. Sometimes the best time to really try and rebuild is the start of the season or towards the playoffs. Like, that's really the best time to be selling guys in a rebuild. And a lot of people want to tear everything down in the off season, but it's a lot of times you're better off, even though it's hard to do, is waiting until the season starts and then finding windows then.
Especially once
I
you
think
pass
even playing it out, taking it a step further, if this is the market for players like Kyren Williams, that people are concerned about a rookie being added there, and this is what you can do in your league, then I start talking to whoever has Josh Jacobs, or whoever maybe I can get Raheem Mostert for nothing, or these other players that got rookie running backs. Like, can I grab that veteran that, if everybody's panicked about Kyren Williams because of Blake Corum, well, are they also panicked about Josh Jacobs because of Marshawn Lloyd as well?
Yeah. And exactly. And that's something that I've had to adjust from last season. You get too rookie happy, and it's like, again, I like the Blake Corums and everything too, but I'm not going out and saying that these other players are useless. I just think that, Kyren Williams is going to have a running mate, but Kyren Williams is still going to be a running back in a Sean McVay offense. Like, don't get silly. Let's like not get ridiculous here. And with that being said, we did get ridiculous about this particular player last season. If you got to capitalize on his trade value, good for you. It's Jonathan Taylor. Again, football guys and Keep Trade Cut are in lockstep on these guys. Both have them as the RB5. I agree with that. And he's officially cheap enough, even being the RB5, if you look at startup value, where I'm taking running backs in startups. Guys, this is new to me. And but like, and we'll go ahead and talk about the trade itself, because I think we're all in agreement. Jonathan Taylor, good, and he's a good player. And just because Anthony Richardson's there doesn't mean you shouldn't want a good player in a probably a good offense. So, Jeff, we'll talk about this first trade because we have three. Taylor for the 105. And I want to get your both opinion to see if it matters. This was single QB, but I would do this in single or in a super flex, depending on my need. What do you think about Taylor for the 105?
So I play in a league with our good friend Joey Wright that he manages, and I was able to grab Taylor last offseason in the panic, and then I did turn around and flip him for Odunze and a package. So yeah, I would do those deals, or the 105 to be able to grab up there. And I mean, we've talked a lot on the show. You know me, like if I can turn a running back like Jonathan Taylor into a high end potential receiver like Rome Odunze, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah, and then that's what I tell folks is just like especially, and it's also relevant. Let's put it this way: that I think that in this draft, I would trade for the 105, because I think Odunze, if not this year, is going to be a solid project next year, a solid prospect next year that I want on my roster. That is probably worth it. We talk about these generational guys or whatever. He's close to it, so I'd be willing to do that. With that being said, Russ, we'll kick it to you. What do you think about Taylor for the 105? It actually, and to give you the further context, this guy said it ended up being Rome Odunze. So knowing that it would be a Odunze, are you keeping Taylor or are you going Odunze? Does that matter for you depending on the build of your roster?
Yeah, I mean, I'll take the easy way out and say it depends on the build of my roster, because I said before when we started talking about Kyren Williams, I don't like running backs. I very rarely have very expensive running backs or very, very good running backs on my teams. Like, I'm always very wide receiver heavy, and then I'll throw a Josh Jacobs, Aaron Jones, whoever the Joe Mixons of the world out there, because At least in my leagues, we only have to start one running back, so I only have one viable running back on my team. But Jonathan Taylor's been really weirdly cheap, and I couldn't help myself. Like, he gets hurt, and Zach Moss crushes it. Zach Moss, how, why? But the second Jonathan Taylor was healthy again, Zach Moss was on the bench. It was literally one game to transition, and then it was the Jonathan Taylor show again. And you said like people should be worried about Jonathan Taylor because Anthony Richardson was there. The opposite. Like, okay, maybe he won't get as many dump offs as he would have with the Matt Ryan, Phillip Rivers, Colts-esque quarterbacks, but it doesn't matter. You get so many more open lanes when you have mobile quarterbacks that it's great for Jonathan Taylor, and he's gonna get the volume. He's a guy that's probably gonna get 80% of the backfield touches. It's tough for me to want to just. I want more than the 105. I want more than Odunze if I'm giving up Jonathan Taylor, which I don't know if it's realistic right now, because everything you're saying about Jonathan Taylor's value is absolutely right. It's very low, wrongly right now, which again feels so weird for me to stick up for a running back, especially against a stud wide receiver prospect. It's weird, and you're making me do it, and I don't appreciate it. But I think the answer is Jonathan Taylor in this aspect, because again, I think you can get more once the point starts getting scored.
And to clarify, I was saying that other people are saying that about Jonathan Taylor. I think Jonathan Taylor is fine. Like, as far because all the things you said, it's like people get upset that offenses are good. They're like, well, yeah, Anthony Richardson's going to run the ball, and then I was like, oh, so you mean that the defense has to key on two guys back there?
Yeah. There can only be one. There can only be one.
No,
it's the rule of fantasy. Only one good player.
This is a side note that has nothing to do with Jonathan Taylor, but I'm surprised Rome Odunze lasted till 105 in a 1 QB league.
Yeah, I was sort of glancing over that one. I want to see what that draft was.
I know, me too.
I'll easily take Taylor over Jonathan Brooks and Trey Benson and, well, let's just say all the rookie running backs. So what else does that leave after Marvin Harrison and Neighbors? And I guess Bowers.
Yeah. And then if somebody grabbed Caleb, I guess maybe.
Yeah, I was about to say, and 1 QB, I wouldn't do that. Like, I would almost grab Daniels in a 1 QB because he gives me he actually gives me upside. You almost want to shoot for the fences in 1 QB,
But yeah, even in knowing it's a Odunze, I'm with Russ. I think I'd rather have Taylor there, and I'm also someone who tends to, especially rookie wide receivers, tend to be a little more skeptical that they're going to be. I know we all love Rome Odunze as a prospect, but we're also kind of doing rookie squared here with Rome Odunze because he's also got a rookie quarterback, and you kind of want them or almost need them both to hit for him to be a stud. So I'm fine taking Jonathan Taylor, eliminating the rookie risk, and I think as long as Taylor stays healthy, Russ had mentioned earlier, no one gets 90% of the carries. He's not going to get 90%, but he's going to be a bell cow. I mean, I know Richardson's going to run the ball a lot, but in terms of when they hand the ball off, it is going to be heavily Jonathan Taylor, and he's one of the few guys in the league you can say that about. So, and I'm not as much of a running back hater as Russ, and I think maybe Jeff is too, but I just I would take Taylor, not easily, but I would definitely take him over Odunze.
I do want to talk about haters. I do want to talk about real quick because I talked about on Twitter today about how we're starting Scott Fishbowl, and the way that it sets up to me with the premium on tight ends, that basically half your league should be stacked through the first round or so, where it can match up to grab like Josh Allen and Dalton Kincaid, and I included Richardson and Taylor in that, and I got some pushback on that. But to me, I think that bet is basically making the Richardson bet along with Taylor. You're just betting that the rushing offense is so strong and so powerful that it pushes through any sort of concerns about them taking from each other. I'm just going all in on that and saying it's a super high end offense that I want both parts of, that are going to have all the rushing attack.
I grabbed Taylor at the 212 in Scott Fishbowl today. But also, if you get Richardson and Taylor, you're probably getting very close to 100% of the rushing touchdowns the Colts score this season. And that's going to be a lot.
Yeah, and that's like, and again, that's when you get in the nitty gritty. This is probably like an audio only episode we could talk about, but like the plus CV moves of stacking and stuff like that. It's like you said, if you got Anthony Richards and Jonathan Taylor, like I'll take it a step further. You have guaranteed 3/4 of the touchdowns that the Colts are going to have. You know, like if they're in the red zone, they're going to be running the ball, and we've seen what Jalen Hurts can do in a Shane Steichen offense, and we've already seen a glimpse with Anthony Richardson. So, like, I think he's going to be just fine. And I get what people keep saying with DeAndre Swift and these other running backs that aren't Jonathan Taylor. You know, like let me put it this way, guys. If you don't have a good goal line back, coaches won't use you. They will use their quarterback or other people. That's the thing. If you have a good goal line back, guess what happens? You might start using them. It's crazy. We have one more Taylor trade. Like I said, there's a lot of wild ones that I needed to talk about. But the first side has Taylor, Godwin, and a 25 second, and they traded that for Garrett Wilson and a 26 first. Um, I really love this trade. I'll start with you, Rocky, and see where you think here before I spill my guts.
I was afraid you were going to come to me first. Because this one's a weird one because I love Garrett Wilson, but we've seen him be hamstrung with the bad quarterback play for his career so far. In theory, he's going to have Rodgers this year, but in theory, he was going to have Rodgers last year too. He still
So negative.
produced, yeah, but you're not going to get that super high end production until he has a quarterback. I it I think this is I hate to say do the cop out. This might be team dependent for me. Like Wilson in 26 first is probably a little bit more of a long term move to me. And if I'm contending, I'd consider sending that for Taylor Godwin in the second. The long term value is definitely on the other side though. But I think both those guys can produce this year. Godwin's not going to be amazing, but he can be a solid wide receiver too for you. And I do think uh, Taylor has like I don't want to say RB1 because I think that's as long as he's healthy, that's probably McCaffrey. But I think Taylor has RB2.
No, McCaffrey is not an RB. He is himself.
Yeah.
So the RB1 that isn't McCaffrey. Absolutely, yeah.
So I get that. I think the value might be on the other side, even though I hate trading for first that are 2 years out. But I would probably take the other side if I'm contending.
I'm not gonna lie. I guess my whole point here is before I pass it to Jeff is I have a hard time seeing why this trade couldn't be broken down to smaller sum of its parts because like realistically you're trading Jonathan Taylor for a 26 first and then Godwin and a 25 second for Wilson, and I'm guessing what makes up for the actual value is this person really wanted Jonathan Taylor or or something like that to make this deal work. And I would have just tried to make a deal for Wilson and keep Jonathan Taylor and try or just move Godwin in that second for someone else. Because like you said, I'm the biggest Garrett Wilson guy out there, if you guys didn't see. And I think that, even with what Aaron Rodgers is, I think that Garrett Wilson has high upside. He just needs not Zach Wilson. So I think that that's there. So like you really kind of hamstrung yourself, and I need more context is what I'm saying. Like to me this is too big of a trade. You didn't need to do all this to just get Taylor and Godwin, or you didn't need to do this to just get Garrett Wilson. Jeff, what do you think of this trade?
Well, I think I know you well enough to know that probably the only persons whose eyes got bigger at this deal than mine would have been yours, because now this is a dream deal. I feel like if you're trying to move off of Taylor and even if you're concerned about Godwin and you're looking for how can I get off of this, to grab a first, to grab Garrett Wilson, a high end receiver, and this is exactly what I would try to do usually in my leagues.
I guess for me, it's like I would have just kept like, and again, I don't know what your quarterback is. I need more context. But if this were my roster, if I had Taylor and Godwin, I probably have a competitive roster. I would just try to keep Taylor when he's still in his prime and try to get Wilson a different way. Meaning that I would probably just pay Godwin in a first to get Wilson anyway and just keep my second. I'd be willing to do that. We'll end with you, Russ. Where are you at on this trade? I'm assuming you would lean the Taylor side.
This is actually weirdly even to me. I broke it down very different than you did, though. But I'll first agree with Rocky. This is a very beautiful rebuilding versus competing trade. To me, Taylor and Wilson are actually pretty close in value to each other. You have that like wide receiver 6-7 for the running back 5. Like that seems to just mesh together. Godwin in a second for a future first for 25 second for a 26 first sounds fine. So to me it absolutely does just sort of work itself out, and I've always been a fan of Godwin, but also agree with Rocky. He's a fine wide receiver too. He is what he is at this point. I have long since gotten over the hope that he was going to magically become a wide receiver 1. It's not happening. Wilson, I very well he can be without even like this itty bitty like mediocre. Give him mediocre quarterback play, and he could be an easy wide receiver 1. Like so, that's why I love the idea of this trade, because I think both of these teams are walking away feeling great about this, especially because it's a 26. Who cares about 26 firsts right now? Like, so you feel like you're barely spending anything to go and get these 2 guys that will be in your lineup every single week, and you'll feel good about it. And then you get the 25 second to go do something with later.
To make you feel good about Godwin, like I think Garrett Wilson's floor is Chris Godwin. So like if anything, like you've sacrificed perceived ceiling that we haven't seen for a floor that like we've seen. Like we know Chris Godwin can do better. Let's put it that way. We know his floor, so you're getting like the same floor. So it's like it's a trade that I would rationally think that is even, but it would be hard for me to do to give up Wilson because I'm an irrational person with him. With that being said, we'll move to our next player. It's another one that me and Jeff have talked about, but we've seen enough interesting trades that it's kind of fun to see how other people almost, I feel like, kind of either taking our advice or taking our advice on the opposite side and try to take advantage of people depending on what meridian you are. But it's Zamir White. Jeff, we'll start with you on these trades, and we'll just get right into it. Football Guys is way lower than consensus. We got him RB32. Keep Trade Cut has him RB20 right now. We have all been pretty realistic of what he is, but the trade that happened is Zamir White in a 25 first and a 23 third for Devon Achane. Is this too much for Achane even with White, or are you comfortable with that trade?
Me, noted Zamir White hater, but no, I think that this is probably a little bit healthy for HN. I don't know if that's the direction that I would go on that deal, because how much of production, unless HN, there's rumors that maybe he's supposed to be Christian McCaffrey and he's going to play wide receiver and they're going to get him the ball all these different ways. Sure. If he's scoring 25 fantasy points per game, absolutely. But if he's at 17, 18, and especially if he's not able to stay on the field and you're getting 15, 16 from Zamir White, like what, you're just kind of getting a free first almost at some point to be able to augment the value of what you're hoping Devon and Chan is in the future. And I think that Chan is one of those players that we've seen the glimpses, but if he doesn't put the glimpses together this year, then is he going to take a significant value hit?
Yeah. Russ, where are you at with this trade? Is that too much for Achan, even for Zamir White? Are you comfortable paying that much if you're that big of a Zamir White hater?
Yeah, like this has to be a Zamir White hater and a Devon Achane believer. Absolutely. And I want to be an Achane believer. Like I have a lot of Devon Achane shares because I was sitting at the end of the first of that draft and I'm like, well, we got the fastest running back in the offense with the best running back opening spot with a coach who just likes fast people. Like it was literally the best landing spot for Devon Achane. So I just kept drafting him when there was no one else I wanted to draft at the end of the first that year. And it's scary now. Like you saw those glimpses, but like, is that real? Can that be real? He missed a lot of time, which makes me not want to do this trade right now for him. Like during the rookie draft season, I was trying to trade HN on a couple of teams, and I couldn't get anything better than like the 110 for him. Like I didn't take the trade because to follow my own advice, like you look, I think that guy will be worth more when points are being scored. So I held on. But from the person who made this trade to get into the mind of the crazy person, like if you think that Zamir White is the RB32, which is a little even hateful for me, even though I don't think he's great, but he will get the ball. There's no one else there. And if you believe that Achan is that 16 to 25 point per game range player that he's shown he can be, then this feels like a win for sure. There's so much future we need to know before, like, we need like a year and a half before we could decide who wins this trade, which I think that means it's a good dynasty trade. I think
It's funny. What I was going to say sort of echoes what Russ is saying, in that I think, like, market value wise, right now, it's a little bit much for Achan. But I think in a year, this could look like a bargain, because I am not a big White guy. This reminds me a lot of
I try not to say anything.
that would be Zamir White guy. But I actually am a big White guy. But anyway,
We're here. We finally made it. All right.
Yes.
The show starts.
literally, Rocky, literally.
But I was saying that Zamir White kind of reminds me of a guy that's on his team now, in Alexander Madison last year, and that somebody had to get the ball. He was in a better offense than Zamir White's going to be in, and Madison did like everyone thought there were definitely Madison truthers out there, just because he was the guy, and he'd shown a little bit in the past, and we did not get much at all out of Alexander Madison. And I feel like it's kind of what's going to happen with Zamir White here. There's Zamir White truthers. I lean much more towards the Zamir White hater side. So like I said, I think it could look like a very good deal, sort of like what Russ was saying a year from now. But right now, I think it's a little much value wise.
Yeah, it's weird for me, and I know your guys' opinion on third. You're not super high on them, but like it's almost that like White for a 25 first seems it seems like the right price in a trade calculator. Like if you put that in, this seems fair. But it's like it makes sense, but it's not something I can do because, like you said, there is it. That's why we don't like trade calculators, because like it doesn't weigh all the anxiety that I know this and that type stuff in there. And for me, the third just seems egregious. That like if someone countered with the third, I would just be like, that's too much. Like we're done. Like with this conversation, I don't know, because it's like Zamir White's about worth a second right now. So like if this was Zamir White, a second and a third, yes. If this was a first and a second for Achan, for sure. But like I don't know. That third just does something for me.
And you know that was a point of contention. It's like,
Yeah.
all right, I'll give you White in a first for Achan. Throw in a third. Are you serious?
Yeah.
You know what? Just fine. Just
Yeah.
And I've definitely insisted on the third in trades before. Yes.
Yeah, like it's been like it's like that third you're probably gonna blow it. Like, you know, let's be honest. You're gonna blow it, but like it still matters. It's your right to blow it. That's the thing.
I'm gonna let that pick just clock out, and I'm not even gonna make the pick. It's a power move. That's what it was.
Our next Zamir White trade, Zamir White in a 25 first and a 25 second for Christian Watson in the 110. I actually love the Christian Watson and 110 side of this, because I like this draft class better than the next draft class. The second, again, doesn't really matter. It's a 25. But the 110, you're basically could turn Zamir White into like Jonathan Brooks there. You could turn him into Trey. Like you can get a running back or somebody that's automatically better. You get Xavier Worthy. Where are you at on this trade, Russ?
Man, like, see, here's the thing. Like, White or the 25 first should get you the 110.
Mm-hmm.
I don't agree with the White part.
I don't think White. I don't think White gets you the 110.
I've seen it, which is the only reason I say that. And I'm not a big, very, like, I don't think I give a second for Christian Watson right now. Like, he's just very, which means it's like, well, I would rather have the 110 out of any part of this trade, but giving up Zamir White, the 25 first, and the second for Christian Watson, the 110, it's just too much. Like, I'll give you White and the second for the 110 and something else that isn't Christian Watson. Like, if we can negotiate a trade that wasn't ours that's already been done, but it feels like it's too much to give up for the pieces I'd rather have anyway.
Yeah, that's Christian Watson does nothing for me. I get like I would probably counter with somebody else for a little bit of mustard, but like that 110, maybe I'm a little too bullish on there. Jeff, where are you at with this trade?
Now that my rookie drafts are done, I hate the 110. I had that in a couple drafts, and I
love
just
the
was
110.
angry because it was like I'd rather just have the 2-3 and let somebody else make the choice for me because I'm missing all the players that I want anyways. And it's usually when I end up in drafts with like the 110 and I've missed out of the tier, I am the type that suddenly I have meetings during the day and I'll be back, and yeah, it's one of those things of I want to move out of that pick, and so that's kind of where I don't put. To me, I don't assign a high value to that just because I think that the 203 is essentially the same pick in my mind as the 110 this year, unless some miracles, Brock Bowers or somebody dropped to there because your league decided to make that choice.
I need you to take the Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas Jr., and Jonathan Brooks slander out of your mouth, because
Yeah.
that 110 is a beautiful pick.
I agree with you. There.
Too bad we
Russ.
weren't in any leagues together that I had the 110.
Yeah, because it's like, and to be honest, I hated the 110 early in rookie draft season, but towards the end of rookie draft season, I'm like, well, now people know. Like, I was getting Jonathan Taylor, or excuse me, Jonathan Brooks at like the 203,
Right?
early into it. Like, those were the good old days. And then quickly, people were just like, nope, like they were getting them early in the first, or people were trading up to go get them into the first. And by people, I mean, I'm people. And then that just creeped up that ADP and stuff. And you know what, you know how it flows after that. So like the 110's fine for me. And like, and this is one, maybe I'm too bullish, but like White is one of those I want to get out sooner than later, like more than ever. So like I would be a little bit ants in my pants to do that, to get this trade. And I'm probably immediately going to try to flip Christian Watson depending on what my wide receiver is, because I almost guarantee I can get a 25-second back for Christian Watson. Like that's something I can get back. We'll move on to a favorite of our Trade Addicts crew. It is T. Higgins. It's been T. Higgins trade time, y'all. We had a lot of them. Football Guys is a little bit more bullish. The Keep Trade Cut, we have him as our wide receiver 18. Keep Trade Cut has him at wide receiver 23. From all of us here, go out and get him because the getting's good. So we'll just dive right into the trades. Rocky will give you the first trade. We have T. Higgins, Jelani Woods, and a 26-second for TJ Hawkinson. This is nuts. I think Hawk's all right, man. And to give you guys further context, thank you, is my brain's going to mush, guys. I've been on a call for
happens when you talk to us for too long. We're supposed to.
TJ Hawkinson is his third tight end.
Oof.
If it's his third tight end, it's crazy for me. So Rocky, where are you at on this trade?
Not that it makes a huge difference, but are we assuming tight end premium or no?
It is tight end premium.
How much?
Yeah, I know that does matter a little too.
I don't know that. It's not
right.
enough for me. It's not enough. I don't know, man.
I would probably lean Higgins in the pick, especially with the context that he's his third tight end. That shouldn't matter pure value wise, but we love T. Higgins. And again, you get the second on top. Jelani Woods, absolutely no value in that trade to me, but I think Higgins and a second is pretty decent value, especially if it's not if it's like a 1.5 or something like that. That doesn't move the needle as much. If it's a 2.0, but it'd probably be the other side for me. But if we're assuming, say, 1.5 premium, I would go Higgins in the second.
Yeah, I don't. Hawk might not even play this year, and that's
don't say those words. Don't say those words.
I think he's not playing, but I think he's not playing early.
He's not playing early. I'm good with that.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be 8 weeks without him, and that is. But redraft value does creep in a little bit to our dynasty value.
Absolutely.
So Jelani Woods, it's like he's a fun throw-in, but I love Jelani Woods for what he is as a lottery ticket, but he's a lottery ticket. He's a scratch off at best, guys. So, Russ, where are you at with this? I'm assuming you're T. Higgins, right? Yeah.
I'm going to agree with just about everything Rocky said from beginning to end. First things first, just because some guy isn't very valuable to your roster doesn't mean you sell him for that reduced price. TJ Hawkinson might be your third tight end, but he's going to be that person's first. So he should be traded for that first tight end's value. That being said, if we're talking 1.5 points per reception for tight ends, or even that extra 0.75, this is a good price. Higgins in a second, regardless of how far in the future the second is probably fine for Hawkinson. If it's a full extra point, then I don't care that he's missing 8 games. I'll hold on to Hawkinson. He's that good. But if we're talking like a 0.5, 0.75, give me Higgins, who is going to be, again, at worst, like this is, kind of not quite the Garrett Wilson conversation we had before, but like at worst, he's a solid wide receiver too. But just don't forget what we saw. I know last year is rough on people's minds when it comes to T. Higgins, but for like the game and a half where we had a healthy Joe Burrow and a healthy T. Higgins was getting double-digit targets, double-digit receptions, and triple-digit yards. Like he's that good. And then next year he's going to go be the wide receiver 1 for a team. So like this, again, if we're looking a year in the future back at this trade, you might go get a great wide receiver for a guy who could be a top tier tight end still, or might just not be in that situation where he crushed it, the beginning of the year before he got hurt, and now he fell into that tight end tier again. Again, I love both of these players, so I hope they're both fantastic forever. But yeah, this trade, that specifically in this situation, give me my man T. Higgins.
Yeah, I think we're seeing T. Higgins at his floor. So like it doesn't like we saw him and Joe Burrow injured in the same year. And like a lot of people like all what matters is you didn't give me points. And like in your head, I guess that is, but like
this isn't
technically technically that isn't true, guys. And like you said, this isn't redraft. Like I hear that all the time. People like he doesn't give me points. And I'm like, okay, well like play with your emotions, man. This is a math game, But like you said, you have a high variance wide receiver too. Jeff, we'll go to you to the next trade. Higgins for 25 first. I lean the Higgins again because I like the upside of Higgins, and I am kind of out. Not out, but like I'm not as in on like 2025 draft picks as I am on this year. You would know the best. You do Devy more than I do.
Well, now I had a really fun scenario that played out for the last trade in my head, and I didn't even get to talk about it. So
well, talk about it. Talk about it. Like, go ahead. We can wait.
Okay.
Like, we got time.
What happens if we get a back half season of TJ Hawkinson, but he's like tight end 15 behind Justin Jefferson and Addison's, and they have a rookie or they have Sam Darnold at quarterback? And then what happens if we get T. Higgins healthy with Joe Burrow and he gives you wide receiver 14 season and he goes out and signs a massive deal with, like, what if Jaden Daniels looks good, or what if Bryce Young looks good, and T. Higgins goes out and signs a massive deal to be their wide receiver 1? What happens to the values of those two players? And that's my thing. I think you could, to me, the pick was on the wrong side on the last trade in my opinion, but yes, for a 25 first, I mean, I'm probably cashing a 25 first to get T. Higgins if I feel mildly good about my roster. I think 25 class, Carson Beck is the quarterback 1, I think, right now, and don't know, Shedeur Sanders maybe is the quarterback 2. When it comes to wide receivers, there's some nice high-end wide receivers that coming out. Torrey McMillan, Luther Burden, those guys at the very, very top end. And then you got a lot of running backs. And so, but the thing with running backs is we've seen them go one way or the other, it seems, recently in Devy and rookie drafts. And so that's where, if I can cash, if I'm feeling good, if I've got a playoff team and I can augment it and add T. Higgins into that for my 25 first, I'm probably going to do that deal.
Yeah, Jagger, you made the great point, and then Jeff, you just reassured it. If you think this is going to be a playoff first, like, how are you not thrilled to go get T. Higgins with that first? Which we, Jeff, you were just saying how in what we call a great draft year, you didn't even like the 110. So like, if you're, what if that's the 112? Because you want your pick to be the 112. Well, assuming you play in a 12-team league, if you play in a 14, you want it to be the last pick in the first round. So absolutely, if you think you have a playoff first, if you have a team that made the playoffs already and you didn't age out, you didn't lose anybody, why not sell your first for a guy who has an insanely safe floor but a ceiling that we haven't super seen what it can be yet just this year, and then what it can be next year when he's the guy somewhere.
Yeah,
Man, I love the idea with him and Jaden Daniels when you saying that out loud. I don't like him on the Manders because I don't like that jersey necessarily. Like my dream is still like going to Jacksonville with the Clemson reunion and just getting that green jersey right over here. But like, I'm just excited anyway.
and even if the first isn't that low, like 110ish or something like that, I know we hope every wide receiver we draft or whoever we draft is going to be as good as, say, a Justin Jefferson or whatever. But chances are, whoever you take with that 25 first, you'll probably be pretty happy if they have T. Higgins' career. So, I mean, I guess you're losing a few years if that guy even turns out to be T. Higgins. But yeah, I would gladly give the 25 first for Higgins.
Yeah, and it's like what Jeff made a small point that I'm going to expand on. And I will say that point you made on Hawkinson is exactly where I'm at. I think Higgins and Hawkinson are like the same for me, and I would switch. But anyway, but to the point about the next draft class is like if it's deep with quarterbacks and wide receivers, but mainly quarterbacks, I will care because like I at least know that draft capital is going to put them on a team that needs them. But we just saw last year that was chock full of running backs that even if they get the draft capital and like we even if they're good and have good profiles, lo and behold, the Jaguars will take him, and then he won't do anything forever, or Pete Carroll will draft him, and he has to split carries. Like that's what happens with running backs. So like, yeah, it's a deep running back class, but like putting your eggs in that basket is. I think we have enough now to say that that's a risky business that you shouldn't do. So like, go ahead and get Higgins now, and it's a 25 first, and we're not even to August yet. You can get a 25 first later or somehow.
You
like
get
you
someone
can,
else's 25 first who will be
exactly.
earlier than yours.
There you go.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think a good point on running backs is what we're seeing the NFL do. I think you're seeing a clear divide between more of the analytics driven, the more those types of front offices that just don't put any value at all in the position, and then maybe you're getting some more of an old school football type mind that are saying, "I can't believe this guy's sitting there in the third round. We're going to take him, even though we've got another starting running back." And I think that's. I don't know that Dynasty's really grabbing that and understanding that that's what's happening in the NFL draft, but I think that over the last couple drafts, especially, we've seen a pretty clear pattern there where teams are either valuing running backs and they're falling far enough in the draft, they're willing to grab another one, even though they have one, or teams are just punting the position completely and saying that's not how we're building our team.
Yeah. We're late in the show, so I don't even care that we're slightly getting off topic here. But like to keep on the running backs, basically, if you're an early rookie drafter, I think all running backs are second round picks. They're second round picks until they are drafted on a team that you know there is a path to success. Second round picks. I don't. Bijan, okay, but like, how many Bijans have we gotten? I've only seen the one since I've done this, so let's put it out there. But with that being said, we got
You
one
have
more
some much
Higgins
older
trade.
gentlemen sitting around you.
Yeah. How many Bijans have you guys had in your career?
I mean, we've had at least Zeke and Saquon. I mean, Nick Chubb was there as
2016 class
well.
was something else, or
Yeah.
Yeah,
We've had a
that was
couple.
but again,
2017 class.
yeah, maybe I'm wrong. I just
No,
not a
no,
good
no.
bet.
You're just young. That's the difference.
Yeah, that's true. Thank you. This is the only pod I still am, and like actually am younger than everyone else. Like I just don't age. I'm like a vampire. But our last Higgins trade, and this one is a lot, and it's one I'd almost reject because I don't like to overthink trades when they get too big.
Oh,
But it's Higgins, Deshaun Watson, Zamir White, a 25 third and a 25 fourth for Pickens, May, and Polk. Um,
Can I just
go
chime?
ahead.
This one is so easy for me.
Is it? Go ahead.
It's Higgins over Pickens, Watson over May, White in a third over Polk. Thank you, done.
I just love saying Higgins and Pickens right next to each other. That's the only thing that made me happy right there.
To me, it's so easily the Higgins side there.
What about you, Jeff? Your face, because like
take
for me, it's
Watson
not
over
that easy.
May.
Yeah, I wouldn't take Watson over May.
I
That's
am not, well, I'm not very bullish on May. So with the whole Patriots thing, and I don't know these guys as well as you do in terms of film and stuff like that. But I would rather have Watson than May. Value wise, you're right. May's probably more than Watson, but for me, I would take Watson over May.
Yeah, it's funny because it's like you said it's so easy, and I was like, yeah, me too. And then you said the opposite of what I thought. No, it's I think that I mean I believe quite a bit in what Pickens has potential to do this year with Russell Wilson, and then I would, if I can cash right now, if I have Watson in a league with you and you'll give me May for him, I will do that deal for the entire fantasy football community. So just offer it up and we can do that. And then I like Polk. I've that's a player that I like quite a bit. I've been grabbing him in underdog for redraft. I just think when you look at the uncertainty, that's one of those situations that I think he's got a great opportunity to be an immediate contributor as a rookie receiver. And really, we've seen the way that players that do that catapult in value in fantasy.
Just for the record, I would not do it straight up because I know I should get more.
I'll give you a third.
How dare you?
That's the line. That's the line, Jeff. For me, it's the Pickens side, and it's like Jeff said. Like, I think that Pickens is the guy right now. Like he's going to get most of the targets, and for what Higgins is, and he's a high variance player. Pickens, I think. This is the year where he can make that next step to be a top 12 player, and this system that can really support that. And like I said, I don't know what Deshaun Watson is, and I don't know how to value him. And because of that, I just don't want to and I get now, like when I was young, I'm like, why doesn't this player get a team? And I get how NFL teams are now. Cause like what is he? Like, what am I going to do with this? What kind of problems do I have to worry about? And that's how I feel. And then, Polk over Watson, I agree. So that makes you, is it going to be a tie? Or is it going to be a complete wash and you're in the minority? Russ, where are you at with this?
See, this is the kind of trade someone would send me if I had the Pickens, May, and Polk side. Like they would try and dangle Higgins over and then just throw a bunch of players I want nothing to do with. I have no interest on Deshaun Watson being on any of my teams. I have no interest in Zamir White being on my teams. The third and the fourth are just whatever.
Whatever.
So the truth is, I'm going to take the Pickens, May, and Polk side because I agree with Jeff. Polk is interesting. And that's a very open wide receiver room. Except if Kendrick Bourne is healthy, then it's his. I mean, we know that, But otherwise, it's and Pickens, I don't know if top 12 is really there for me, but we've seen him put up 200 plus PPR points with Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky. Regardless of what you think Russell Wilson is at this point in his career, or if what you think Justin Fields could be, it's better than Pickett and Trubisky. So, I do believe that Pickens will be good. I would rather have Higgins over Pickens, which is really just I want to say those two names fast. Really, Higgins, Pickens. But yeah, I'd rather have May over Watson, and I don't want to think about White a third and a fourth. So I'd probably just take the young side. I'd take Pickens, May.
Yeah, I think I don't feel as good about Pickens as you guys do either. I think that's part of the issue for me.
You're allowed to be wrong every once in a while. It's fine.
Yeah,
I'm wrong very often. I'm used to it.
Let's put it this way, he's gonna look like a genius if he's right later. So make sure to victory lap on Twitter. We'll finish with our last player. It is Rashee Rice, and I'm so happy we got trades because he's another player that's like, what do I do with? I got him in the throw in, and that feels comfortable. Any other way I've gotten him or tried to trade for him, I don't feel good. He is Football Guys wide receiver 27, keep trade cut wide receiver 32, right around the same tier, same bucket. So we'll jump right into trades. Rocky, we'll start with you. We got Rice and a 25 first for Olave and a 26 second. Where do you land on the Olave Izzy Doo Meridian?
I feel like Olave is kind of, I've said it for a while now, is kind of overrated. I feel like people for a long time, maybe it's starting to change a little bit. I've treated him as sort of like a wide receiver 1, and I see him as a career wide receiver 2. I feel like he's a little overvalued. But that said, I'm kind of, I think, with what you were saying, that I don't know how to value Rashee Rice right now. Especially given all the legal issues. I mean, I think he's probably going to have a suspension, but dynasty long term, that doesn't necessarily matter. I think I would lean Olave just because I don't know what to think of Rice, and I feel like I'm at least getting something solid, something secure with Olave, and I would have to feel good that was a playoff first, uh, and not going to be higher. But other than that, I think I'd rather have Olave in the second.
Jeff, where are you with this? Because actually, before we go to Jeff, I gotta ask you, Rocky. Do you think Olave's overrated because of talent or because he's a saint with Derek Carr?
Yeah, a little more so the same thing with Derek Carr. Just because, like I said, I just feel like his ceiling is kind of capped. I don't think we're gonna see like wide receiver. Even if Carr leaves, I mean, then you're maybe looking at a rookie or you're looking at journeyman potentially. It's not like he's necessarily going to go to some sort of stud QB situation. I feel like he's kind of capped at wide receiver 2 level in terms of fantasy production.
Yeah, Jeff, where are you?
I feel like Chris Olave is the spiritual successor to DJ Moore, where it was like you had that window with DJ Moore where everybody was like,
That's
he
a
is
good
elite. I
comparison.
can't hear anything
Yeah,
other than he is
exactly.
elite. You can't even say, but you're like, okay, well, he catches 70 balls and he gets 1,000 yards and scores 4 touchdowns. Like, sure, I believe you. He's elite. It's like one of those things of like, okay, it was like, and there was like this hive of like people that were just out of their mind, and maybe they're right. I mean, 1,300 yard season last year for DJ Moore.
6 years
Finally kind of
later,
clicked
well,
there.
who's laughing
6
now?
years later.
Yeah.
But there was, I mean, you guys have been around Dynasty community long enough. You know that there was DJ Moore people and they will not hear it. And I feel like Olave is kind of.
I was one of those DJ Moore people.
Unless he
I
just,
am too. I am too. Well, just say it with your chest, Jeff.
I did get a deal on DJ Moore last summer because I tweeted something to the effect of there's one person in your league that believes in DJ Moore above all else, and they're the person that has him on their roster.
Yep.
And somebody
It's
was
totally
like, fine, I'll
true.
prove you wrong. I'll give you, I think it was like Joe Mixon in a second, and I got DJ Moore, and I was like, I'll do that
Ooh.
deal. I'll give you Joe Mixon in a second for DJ Moore.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. With that being said, so like, are you pro Olave for this trade, or are you taking Rice?
I'm still probably buying Rice. I'm still,
What?
I don't know. Well, I mean, I drafted him in the draft that we just did, in the startup that we just did. I'm still curious what's the suspension going to be, I guess is kind of where my question is. Because if we get to 8-game suspension, okay, sure. But is the Alvin Kamara situation potentially there where he plays all year long? And then if he does do that, is he the Chiefs' primary option? And all of a sudden we're talking about Patrick Mahomes' primary option, and I don't really care if he's going to miss 4 games next year or whatever because he's established himself as that. I think that that's maybe in play for Rice.
Interesting. Where are you at, Russ?
Yeah, a combination of what everyone has said. I'm a big Olave fan of the player. Like, I remember, and I feel so bad because I hate being happy when players get hurt because that's mean and they're human beings. But like when Derek Carr missed time and Jameis Winston came in, I was like, yes, it's Olave time, baby. Because like to disagree with what Rocky said because he was wrong again is that he doesn't need an elite quarterback. He can get it. He just needs someone who can throw the ball, or not can, who will throw the ball. He needs Jameis Winston. He needs someone that will just wing the ball within like a 5-foot radius of him, of Chris Olave, and Chris Olave will probably catch it. Like that's the biggest problem is that Derek Carr is just scared. He's not even a check down. Like he's not even Alex Smith. Like what is he? Like is he? I mean, let's get real. Is he Chad Pennington at this point? Like he's and that's not what you can't get a wide receiver 1 season out of that anymore. So like yeah, there needs to be change for Chris Olave to become a thing, but I really do believe in the player, which is why I will still ride with him. That being said, yeah, Rice is fine as a player. Like I'm not gonna ding someone for their ADOT being negative. Like that's what's working for him, you know. And the fact that they brought in Hollywood Brown, who's a really good deep player, and then they brought in Xavier Worthy, who I think is much more than a deep player, but still they brought in 2 guys that are going to make the defense worry about down the field, which they haven't had in like 3 or 4 years. Which is going to really open the middle of the field for Kelsey and the back of the field for Rice, which is huge for them. So, especially if you think the way Jeff just did with the suspension talk, which, we have no idea if there even is going to be one. Like, or when there is or anything. It's died down so much that if they just didn't give him suspension, will anyone be mad about it anymore? Like, no. Like, and not to say that I don't think they will. They probably will, but like, who cares about 2 to 4 games in a dynasty league of a 23-year-old, 22-year-old wide receiver? It's nothing. So like, I would probably take Rice in the first over Olave and a 26 second. The year matters a little bit in there, but like, there's a good chance you're getting insanely similar points per game production out of the two of these players, not just this year, but maybe for a while until the quarterback or team situation changes for Olave. So why not take the better pick?
If there was no suspension, if Rashee Rice had not done the off the field,
That's
thing,
the big thing. If he wasn't an idiot, this would be such a
would
different
he be
conversation.
valued above Olave? I would think he would probably be valued above Olave in a lot of places.
Very
And
close,
that's
if not. Yeah, I agree. Like, because he was going for mid firsts and super flexes before he was stupid.
I'm back and forth with him because, like, again, like I'm not like a huge A dot bro, kind of like you brought up Russ, where like I think that he sucks or whatever because he got manufactured a lot of touches, but he did get manufactured touches, and I don't know if that means that like I I don't know if he can get to where Jeff is saying at. Like I think if you think Chris Olave is a perennial wide receiver too, I definitely think that Rashee Rice is a perennial wide receiver too. And I don't mean that's a bad thing because again, like a lot of people roll out wide receiver twos, but like I just feel like it's easier for Chris Olave to be a high end wide receiver one than it is for Rashee Rice. And that's the bet I'm willing to make. Ask me again next year though, because like you said, I don't want a second DJ Moore that I'm, waiting on like a Haley's comment. 6 years.
Gotta wait 6 years and you'll get it, baby. Just be patient. Be patient.
Yeah.
And I do think that the supporting cast being better could hurt him a little. Like with
that's why
Hollywood is more than just. I mean, they could just use him in an MVS type role, but he can be more than that. And
He's
and
so
as
much
Russ
more,
said,
yeah.
Xavier Worthy can too. And then with having more guys, I kind of feel like Kelsey might get more open targets, and we'll see Kelsey doing more better than he did last year. So I'm not sure Rice gets as many manufactured targets. Just maybe kind of what you were saying, Jagger, because the supporting cast around him is better this year, and Mahomes has more options.
Yeah, and that's what makes Dynasty unique is everybody values stuff differently. I just like guys that can get open no matter what, and that's why I always like Ayuk over Debo no matter what Debo does, and like maybe one day I'll change, but I do get older every day, so that seems less likely. Our last trade before we get out of here is a pretty easy one. Actually, it's not at all. It's Rice for Mike Evans in a 25 third. I think that this is a question to be had. Because I like what Evans is, and I don't know when he's going to die, but he's in his Derrick Henry years, and I'm not willing to bet on it. And then you get a third on top of that. But like knowing where Jeff is at, I'm assuming that you would take Rice.
Yeah, all day.
Mm-hmm. Russ, what about you?
The thing about Evans is he's not going to get less tall. and he does. It's not like he jumps very high. He doesn't have any yards after the catch. He catches the ball and falls down. Like that's his MO. So like Evans is going to go down in history as like some of the most yards in NFL, like in history. Like he's already in like on the list. Like he's 1,100 yards every single year, and I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. Like they haven't brought in any wide receivers to threaten him at all, and we see that him and Godwin do well together. That being said, I would still take the youth of Rice and the chance that the agreeing with what both of you guys said, there will be fewer touches for Rice with the more offensive weapons there, but there won't be 11 defenders within 6 yards of the line of scrimmage anymore. Like you had to have one dude just follow MVS, and that's all you had to do because he's just going to drop the ball if you threw it to him anyway. So like, but now you're going to need to worry about Hollywood Brown, and you're going to have to worry about Xavier Worthy, who will only drop it like one every 3 times. So like that'll open the field up more, hopefully also for Kelsey, for everyone who said that also. But so Rice will be able to take those screens for 16 yards instead of 6, which is what you want, right? Fewer touches, more efficiency anyway, because then you get beat up less. So like I still think Rice will be fine. And again, this is all talking purely football, assuming he's on the field for as many games as he can. But I also understand, like, I'm very risk averse. Like, I don't like dealing with headaches. So if you want to get out of the headache, getting those 1,100 yards, and hopefully you get those years where Evans scores more than 3 touchdowns. Like, this feels like a good move in the other direction also. So I think the trade is probably fine. But in like 80% of cases, I'll take the young wide receiver here.
It's weird. Like I think wide receiver is the only position I'm not risk averse in. Anything else, I'm like, yeah, man, I'll carry this grenade that with no pin in it.
I mean, when the grenade is attached to Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, I'm a little bit more willing to go in and buy it. So,
yep.
And I'll be real quick on this one. I think Evans is going to score more points than Rice this year. But I still would take the Rice side because to me, just value wise, this is basically to me a second and third for Rice, and I feel like that's too good of a value to pass up.
Yeah.
That's something. Yeah, Mike. Again, this was a good episode because you guys gave us those weird players that it's harder to value when you talk about an actual trade than analyzing ADP and the usual constructs. But that'll do it, folks. Like I said, Russ and Rocky have their own podcast, Trade Addicts. I'll give you guys a moment to talk about what you guys are doing. You guys, these are the OGs when you talk about podcasting about solely trades, which is a thing that you love to do. And if you made it this far, you are a sicko and you want to listen to their pod. So, Russ, I'll let you give it a minute to plug what you guys have going on.
Well, Rocky, you talk about Trade Addicts first. I'll talk about other stuff after.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, Trade Addicts. It's on the DAP network. We have we put it out Russ usually gets it every
record
Wednesday
every Tuesday. It's
how record every Tuesday. It comes out
Yeah.
a couple days later. We basically talk trades. We talk so we get some listener questions from Twitter. We're also talking we got 11 Trade Addicts leagues we're pulling from, talking about trades from all real trades from whatever happened the past week. Sometimes Russ manufactures them, but it's a lot of fun. And if you do tune in, like what you hear, we also have a Patreon with a Discord and all that good stuff. So give us a listen if you like us. Maybe you can become a patron and then get some more little perks there.
Yeah, if you have the real sickos out there and you want to have an episode about the Outhouse Challenge, that's some real insane stuff. But the reason I let Rocky talk about Trade Addicts podcast, which is just wonderful and amazing, and everyone should be listening to it if they aren't already anyway, is because, I want to take the time to talk about Fantasy Cares because, we brought up Scott Fishbowl. It's the Fishbowl season. It's here. It's draft day. It is one of the most relaxing days of my life because it's all finally over with. But Fantasy Cares, if you don't know, it is a 501c3 charity where our biggest deal is the Scott Fishbowl, but we try and just bring a charitable element into everything. But really, for fantasy sports, we play this silly game with silly money, that extra money that we have. So you might as well put some good use to it. Have at least a buy-in of all your leagues go to charity. Rocky said we have 11 Trade Addicts leagues. Our buy-ins are $42 for each league because it's the answer to the ultimate question of life, the universe, and everything. But also because we actually put 2.5 buy-ins to charity. And what we like to do is, I say we, like I'm not the person that set up every single one of these leagues. What I like to do is the winner of the league chooses what charity it goes to. And I'll say the same thing I say to everyone. I'd love if you donated to Fantasy Cares, but just donate in general. So, fantasycares.org. If you want to donate to us, that's great. If not, just donate to someone, do some good with, the silly money we play with.
Yep. Thank you so much, guys. And like I said, we're in an hour and 15. Like, you are a degenerate. You have money to donate or something, even if it's just $5. But we love you all. Again, it's always me, your host, Jagger, with Jeff, Ross, Rocky, Russ, Ross, and Rocky.
Love it. That's our new name.
Russ, Rocky, thank you so much. And we'll see you guys on the next one.